let you take over.
Thanks, Roseanne. Thanks for welcoming. So obviously filled the stands. It's pretty good, really. So in terms of sporting key milestone, I think we've already achieved that. So thank you for giving up your time to do this. And your commitment to saying sport's something we should plan for. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But just by way of introducing myself, I've got a background in teaching. Was a secondary school principal. Moved into professional sport. I don't want to say too much about that because it involves managing a professional rugby franchise just south of here. And being from Taranaki, I'm very pleased to be the newest member of the Chiefs. So it hasn't been signed and sealed and delivered yet, but apparently we're on family now. So it's great to be here. My approach to planning is quite simple, really. I think that we can spend a lot of time navel gazing to get details that quite probably aren't important, to wordsmith stuff, to do a whole lot of things, and really the stuff that's on top, and we know where we want to go and what our kids need, what our kids want, and if we ask them and involve them, it doesn't take long to figure out where we need to be. So these little diagrams I've put up here really are to sort of set the scene for the philosophy of the session really. We can overplan, and we can spend so much time. I remember a politician I met from Great Britain, she said, never fund plans, fund outcomes. People can write good plans, so we can do too much of it. But we do need something, because sometimes I know as a sports coordinator you feel like that, sitting at the bottom of that seesaw there, and probably on your own, there's usually not that many people trying to hold it down with you, and stuff coming down on top of you. So it's really good to get some way of making sure that we can go forward. However, I like this graph. No information, and we've got no idea what we're doing, it's chaos. We get some information, we get better and better and better, the confusion drops down, but we can go too far. I want us to stop somewhere in this part of the graph today, for sure. And the other thing is, a prime example of this, I worked with a national sporting organisation yesterday, all day, and they had these big plans for a New Zealand Secondary School Championship. Currently they run a North Island event, and they run a South Island event, and they wanted a New Zealand event. And they'd actually laid out all the plans for where it was going to be, how it was going to work. I said, schools won't go. They love the North Island event, they love the South Island event. If you put another one on, and it's going to have to be 3 or 4 weeks after your island event to make it work with that plan, the schools and the kids are going to say, no, it's not a school sport in a large sense, it's an individual sport. The kids who are elite in that individual sport are already performing every weekend on an elite stage. They're not going to want to be, they're probably not going to want to be out of school, let alone the schools going to be out. So sometimes we start heading somewhere and realise it's not where we should have been going if we don't plan. So really that's to sort of set the scene for today. I'm going to talk for a little bit and then you guys are going to do all the work. The lucky thing is we know that Kiwi kids get sport. So we're actually working with something our kids want to do. This is from 17,000 students in 2011 done by Sport New Zealand. There's very few of our kids who just don't like sport at all, don't like playing sport at all. It's not for everybody, but most Kiwi kids, you can't grow up in New Zealand and not understand sport and what it has to offer or have been involved in it. And the thing to me, and I'll talk very briefly about this and then we'll just move on, but this woman is a lady, Baroness Sue Campbell, is chair of Sport UK, was chair of London 2012 as well. When she said this, it started to resonate with me 5 or 6 years ago. That actually sport is an education tool, it's an education strategy. It's a way to engage kids, it's a way to form cultures because people understand it. And yet in our schools, very often it's extracurricular, co-curricular, peripheral, marginalised, and increasingly so with it's no red herring, teacher workload and assessment pressures and all of the things schools have to do. There are good reasons why it's pushed away because it's getting done by volunteers, it's happening anyway, but can we make it better? Can we get more out of it? And some of you will know of a project that we're managing for Sport New Zealand at the moment called the Sport Education Project, just in 8 schools in New Zealand, although we've got about another 15 we're working on no-cost approaches with as well, where we're getting some amazing results through contextualising curriculum for kids. And you can contextualise curriculum to anything, but kids get sport. Through pedagogies of sport, using competition in curriculum, using teamwork in curriculum, using peer leaders in curriculum. We're getting some amazing outcomes in school culture by principals using sport to unpack what their values are to kids and explain them to kids. We're getting some amazing, a school just down the road where we're in Tikawiti High School, some amazing results and connections with their primary schools around sport for Z. Sport is a vehicle by which you can connect with your primary school really easily. They need sporting leadership. You've got kids who can get NCAA credits and get sport and take them down there. I was adding up the other day just down at Tikawiti, and it's not the biggest success in this area that we've got, but around about 600 opportunities are provided for primary school kids to play sport that went there last year through the connections the schools made, including they have about 200 kids there every Thursday night in the summer for a touch module that was never happening in town for all primary schools. They're running primary school cross countries and different bits and pieces. So you can, sport's something that will take you there, and there's a lot of Zers in the room. Primary school for Z is done better than secondary school for Z in some places, where you've got an expert and the principal knows how to use that person. Very, very good. But that's not the general rule. And then with the teacher training moving into universities and away from teachers' colleges, that key area of learning and primary training for a generalist teacher is very much marginalised these days. And so we've got an ageing workforce, we've got teachers coming in without the experience and confidence and skills in primary schools to give good PE, and yet down the road, we've got some PE experts. Now they're not primary school teaching experts, a whole different ballgame, but they know about PE. How do we work that together? So we're doing some things around using sport to connect schools and do those things at the moment. So it is an education tool, and I congratulate you for coming along and giving some time to think about it.
We want every student to experience success and to show the potential, and sport gives students a chance to do that. A teacher who rocks up to a training on a Tuesday and Thursday night and a game on a Saturday is interested in it. So when that student turns up to class, they know that there's someone who's in front of them there who actually does care about them. So, when the hard yards go on, they can probably accept a little bit more, but also they're more likely to go and ask for help when they need that as well.
I think one of the biggest differences for us here, or at any school for that matter, is sort of generating some sense of community, some sense of pride in the place. And I think if it's done well, it can drift off the sports field into the school as well, in terms of the way people present themselves and sort of general attitude around the place. I know that from teaching my classes that getting to know some of the students and asking them questions, even if I'm not watching or involved in the sport, just on a Monday morning asking them about their sports results in the class, you have that conversation and it makes a huge difference.
We've got the opportunity to kind of teach them more than just about how to throw a ball and how to play a game. You're sort of modelling the right behaviours, you're teaching them. Our new curriculum is all about key competencies. You're teaching participating, contributing, you're teaching self-management, you're teaching relating to others. So all that good stuff, all those social skills, all that sort of positive role modelling that you're doing is really valuable when it comes to the coaching. I think that's probably as important, if not more important, than the stuff that you're teaching them in the field.
That little clip comes from a DVD that we made. I made it walking around a handheld camera for a year, where I've been talking to teachers and kids and principals about what sport meant to them, to their teaching, to their schools. If you do want one, we're starting to run out of copies, but I've got about half a dozen in the bag that you can have. It's about an 8-minute clip with a whole lot of different things, but you're welcome to grab one. So what are we going to do today? I want to talk about what a strategic plan is not, very briefly, so that we make sure we're on the right track, not the wrong track here. We're going to do some thinking about school sport, because when we start planning, do we actually think what it might look like when we walk down the corridors, when we're on our way to school? What do we see? What would that look like in your school? What are the key factors if you're going to be using sport well to do things in your school? The TUI ad. I think we do have a simple planning process. I don't think it is a year-right ad, but whenever you start talking about this stuff and you start talking about objectives and KPIs, and we want to stay away from that stuff if we can. Get down the track with a good plan, and at the end, some takeaways, some exemplars and templates for you to work on. But what we will end up doing, hopefully, is doing a lot of thinking and talking about what a good sports environment might look like, and then put a process together that would allow you to go back to your schools and say, okay, if we go through this process thinking about our schools, in very short order, we can have what will be a pretty comprehensive plan for an integrated school into our schools. Okay, what is it not? It's not about nuts and bolts. It's not about how many teachers, extra teachers we could get coaching by the end of this year, or how we could use student leadership opportunities like growing coaches and leadership through league and some of the stuff that's out there, really good stuff, to get an extra 20 student coaches with NCEA credits as well for the opportunity by the end of the year. That's important, but that gets added later. That's annual planning, nuts and bolts stuff. How are we going to, what's our targets here? So we're not going to do that. They can come out of date too quickly. We want to think in a bigger picture today. We want to think like this, really. And what's possible? New ways of thinking. We can all just go back to school and count more jerseys, buy another set of uniforms, get some more balls. It's all important stuff, really, because without it, it doesn't happen. What's the big picture look like? And what's our vision? How big can we get? And the reason I like to talk about vision, it's one of those horrible strategic planning words, but there's a couple of guys, Pollack studied the nations that have dominated history, and he found that when the French were ruling the world, when the Romans were ruling the world, and all these different countries that have basically had a turn of being a power in the world through the leading nations, that at the time that they were leading, they had leaders who were able to tell people what this looked like and where we're going to go and how we're going to do this. So they had a big vision, it was communicated to people, and they were able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. More powerful for schools, Benjamin Singer, he studied a whole lot of kids who were termed successful in terms of their education, and he looked at what the characteristics of those children were, those students were. And he found it wasn't economics, socioeconomic background, it wasn't gender, it wasn't any of those things. It was that they could all talk about what their future looked like in 5, 10 years' time, what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go, things they were going to do along the way. That was the one common characteristic across a range of over 1,000 students that were in similar study. So what I want you to get you to do now, and I'm not going to get all touchy-feely about it, and you can close your eyes and go to sleep if you want, but I want you just at the moment, and to start talking about the people in your group, what would you see if your school was utilising sport in some of the ways that I've talked about? If you had sport performing well in your school, and you were a well-performing sports school, whatever that means, what would you see? What would you see, or someone want to contribute, what would you see when you were driving to school, maybe? You're on your way to school, you drive to school, what might you see that indicated that was happening? Pardon?
Rainbow.
Yep. See kids carrying gear bags because they got sport after school.
Yeah.
See kids, I don't know, maybe talking together, being happy and working as a team because they understand that they're in teams. What are the things you'd see? What would you see in your classrooms? What would you see in a maths classroom? How could sport affect what happens in there? What would you see at lunchtimes? Would you see kids out doing things? Yeah. Yeah. What would you see when you walked into, I should have put a picture up here. I walked into a school in the UK a couple of years ago that just had a rebuild. They were very lucky. There's some schools in New Zealand go from time to time. And they just had a rebuild. And when you walked in the main office door into the reception, there was the reception desk, but behind it was a floor-to-ceiling curved glass wall. And instead of the principal's office, the DP's protecting the principals and the dean protecting the DPs, and you've got to get through the mire to get there. Instead of that, what they had was a state-of-the-art exercise suite behind that glass wall. So when you walked into the school, you saw rowing machines, bikes, you saw a commercial scale gym really. They put it bang smack at the centre of the school. When I walked into the classroom block, which had been built in a square shape, and when you walked around the top level, the middle was open and that was the gym. So whenever you walked around the corridors, you looked at the gym and sport and PE and sport. So what would you see? Now those things are pipe dreams, but what I want you to talk about, it's a real building and a school, not too far from here. That was a dream a friend of mine had a few years ago. I managed to convince the government to build for it. But what would you see happening? So let's have a discussion for 4 or 5 minutes about some actual things you might see. Okay, we just want to grab perhaps one from each group really quickly. So we'll start somewhere like back here. Pay attention. One thing you might see if you had a good sports coach. Just one thing.
Leadership, role modelling, if you're seeing students to juniors,
What would it look like?
taking sports events at intervals, lunchtime.
Okay, so at lunchtime you see kids out there leading sport. Yep.
We talked about lots of things, but one of the things we talked about was the culture of going and visiting your other teams when they were playing, getting on the sidelines,
Yep.
supporting.
Brilliant. Yep. So you had a team playing, stands were full. Yep. What about back here?
Just a success breeds success, so you're not really having to recruit for any of your sports in terms of coaches, managers, student participation. It all just becomes a
So tell me what that would look like. How would you know
high
that happened?
participation rate across school, so sports and then struggling to get players for teams. You know, you've always got
Yep.
full teams, reserves, you've got good management and coaches, and yet all your teams.
Yep.
Your
Okay.
sports administrators aren't.
So you'd look at the list of your teams, there'd be a name, coach's name by each one, and when you had your coaches function, the room would be full and you'd be turning people away.
Yeah.
So what would it look like? What about here?
Yeah, we thought you'd see before and after school, you'd see the gyms, the fields being used,
Yep.
hockey fields, stuff like that.
Yeah. I went to Tauranga Boys recently, and I was a bit early, so I parked outside and took a few phone calls outside the field, and I couldn't believe the whole field was covered with kids playing sport, playing touch, and there were all sorts of games going on, but the games are going across each other. You know, so like they weren't all just on their own fields. There were games going. I couldn't have figured it out. But no one got in a fight, and no one seemed to worry about the fact that just all went across each other. I was had a good message from here. Impromptu games, yeah, impromptu games. Did some planning work at Napier Boys High School, and there was these kids had this game I couldn't figure out. They had a tennis ball, and it was probably up to 20 of them playing with about a dozen on the court at any one time. It was kind of like foursquare without squares, and you could hold the ball and you could do all these different things. And so I just sat there watching for a while, trying to figure out the rules. And what they'd done was they just invented a game that was on the cracks of the concrete as the concrete had been poured. So the cracks were the actual tiles that you were in, and there was no the top tile or the bottom tile, you were just in or out. And it was right on the pathway between the field and the canteen. So kids were walking through the middle of their game, getting their lunch and walking back, but no one seemed to mind. It was a really good little game. One thing you might see here. What might you see if you got a good, if your sports good?
I'm trying to encourage my team to be more basic sense talk. So you
Go on then, Cindy, throw it at me.
come on.
I
That's what this
just
is all
wish
about,
that
isn't it?
it will be probably different spaces being used and not actually having to be watching those areas, just knowing that
Yep.
the kids
Kids are there looking after them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Point one would be the student-teacher engagement. That's something we're doing from a lot of talking between students and teachers.
Yeah,
Not
okay.
just necessarily just about topics, and having like sort of sporting teachers actually being involved in some discussion on sports with the students.
You know, teachers, it's not about getting sport, it's about getting what connects you to kids. And sport's one of the things that can do that, like the person on there was saying, if you have a discussion about volleyball, if the discussion is, oh, hell, are you away from volleyball again? Or the discussion is, how'd your volleyball go? Changes the dynamic for a teacher and a student, doesn't it? But here.
Probably crime themselves, crime segregation and such on the whole dynamics both in sport and classroom.
The school might be clean, might be stuff on the walls that isn't touched, might be murals around that sport. Yeah, whole ethos with it. Just dropping a couple of things that I've seen, or dropping one anyway. I saw empty detention rooms at Kaikorai Valley College. Kaikorai Valley College, one of our sport education schools, are doing with their whole Year 9 cohort. At the end of June, they had 0 after-school Year 9 detentions, compared to 127 at the same point last year. They said their cohort's not that different. So through the work they're doing with the Year 9s engaging sport, that's what I saw was never detention. This school here, and I'm sorry, I just took it off before. Just worth talking about quickly in terms of what they've done. This is a school in Melbourne called Maribyrnong Sports College. That's half the gym. I won't take you right through the whole thing. Maribyrnong Sports College got off the ground because the guy that started it, a guy called Rob Carroll, who sold the idea to the Australian federal government, not state government, got off the ground because he had a new way of dealing with sport in schools. I couldn't see any of our New Zealand schools, certainly our top performing New Zealand schools, wanting to take this on. Maribyrnong High School has got 500 athletes on full government scholarships and another 700 kids. The school has sports teams, but not any of those 500 kids play in a school sports team. The school sports teams come from the other 700 kids who aren't on scholarships, unless there's a kid who's rehabbing or has got some reason to play. Very seldom. The KPIs for all the coaches have nothing to do with ever winning a title, school title. The school doesn't try to win the Victoria State Tennis Championships. The KPIs are around how many of those kids make state and national sides. So how good can you turn these athletes into being? Now how radical an idea is that for schools in New Zealand that have this whole mentality about sport as our shop window, sport as our marketing tool, we win titles, titles translate to public opinion on our school, kids come over. So he turned that completely around.
So what are the other 500 funded athletes do?
They play in club teams, in premier competitions for clubs, a whole lot of different things. So, yeah. Those are some of the facilities there. And when I say some of the facilities, the places for examples really. Whoops. Okay, we'll just stop there for a second. On your table is a bit of paper and pen. Now I know that you're sitting at a table with different schools here and you'll be thinking about your school, but here's a scenario. The Waikato Times on Saturday is doing an article, a magazine feature on sport in your school. So you're a nervous principal or a nervous sports coordinator sitting there because once you go to the media you're never quite sure what goes in and what comes out, as you know very well, what sort of spin they might put on it, how it might look. So when you open up Saturday morning's paper, what is the headline you want to see? And remember, headline's only 4 or 5 words max. And what's the little byline that goes underneath it that makes another 5 or 6 words? So, with apologies to one of the schools here, would it look like that? What would you want to see if you opened up the paper on Saturday morning and this magazine article was about your school? What's the big statement that you'd go, I'm over the moon with that? Because as we know, most people only look at the pictures and read the headlines. So, if you could write it, if you were the journalist, you had the pen, what would you want to see? Great photo of Waikato College off the website, by the way. And the words obviously are not Manamaras, they're mine, I've stuck them over the top there as an example. But what would you want to see? 3 or 4 minutes talk about it. You've got to write it on that bit of paper, so you've got a headline, a byline, and then we're actually going to put them across the top of that wall. It's going to be the start of our simple planning process. Okay, it's really encouraging to see sometimes we do this kind of work, and I don't know, maybe it's the things we talked about in the intro, but the stuff up there will be about sport, about winning, and it's got to make links to sport, but it's encouraging to see people thinking about the bigger picture for sport here. Because you can't drive sport up to the door of schools dressed as sport anymore. Schools are full. They want to do more sport, they want to do good sport, but what is it, how are you going to help you people as sports people, you people as school leaders, your sporting leaders in your schools? How are you going to help the school by use sport? How are you going to drive sport in there by helping them solve their problems? What are their issues? And so we're seeing things up here about understanding engagement, engaging kids will help a whole lot of things in your school. And is sport the way for you to do that? And so what we're going to do now, you've got a bit of paper on your table, we should be hopefully one each of these voters. So why don't you start identifying, the first exercise we're going to do here is individual. If you're going to have a well-performing sports school, or sport performing well for your school, whichever way you want to phrase that, and they can be different, we've got some well-performing sports schools where I would say sport isn't utilised to perform well for the school. If you're going to have all this come together, what are the key factors? What are the key factors that will contribute to that happening? So for example, it may be, and I'll put some little examples at the top there, it may be leadership. What is leadership? Is it from the principal? Is it from, you don't need to go into detail here, but it's going to need some leadership. It might be that with an ageing teaching force, and I think I'm about the average age of teachers these days, and teacher involvement in sport going like that, and I'm not thinking it's going to change anytime soon, given the reality of what teachers are dealing with these days. How are you going to get that leadership? Are you going to need really good connections to your sporting community? Because you've got passion for sport out there in the community. School gates do a pretty good, well, they do an average job keeping kids in. They do a pretty good job keeping other people out at times. You know, how are you going, what are the key factors that you're going to need to address to make sure, or to ensure that sport is done well in your school? So you just make a list of them, and I've given you about 10 spaces here. You might only have 5, you might have 20. Make a list of what you think the key factors will be. And I'll give you some examples here. Okay. So now, in a true sporting sense, we need a game plan, and you've probably got a bigger one because there's always more people on a sports team, as you know, those of you who have coached, that have got ideas about how things should go. Then we've got ways for it to happen. So I've given you 6 pieces of paper on the table there. I want you to talk as a group and agree on a maximum of 6 of the key factors that we've talked about. So I want you, by sharing what you've done here with each other, to come up with, because we can't do everything, and we have to refine things down to be workable. If you're allowed a maximum of 6, you can have 5 if you like, and if you want 7, you can come and beg me for another bit of paper. We'll give it to you. But come up with 6 key factors that the group agrees are the 6 most important for what you've got in front of you here. You might have 60 if you've got 10 each. So I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. But just to explain the end process of this bit of the exercise, once you've done it, I want you to bring your bits of coloured paper up and just lay them on the floor here. So the first group that comes up will obviously have 6 pieces of paper laid across the floor. The next group that comes up will look at those, and if this one says communication, and yours one says making sure everybody knows what's happening, put it in the same row. If you can't see one that matches one of yours, start a new row. But lay your bits of paper out and let's see what we've got on the floor here. Okay, just want to stop for a second. I just want you to start that discussion without finishing it, because I just want you to start sharing a bit before you do the next bit of the exercise on your own, because now I'm going to get you to think about your key factors that you wrote down and your school. So you've written down a whole lot of things here: leadership from the principal, or alignment with school strategic plan, or whatever it is. And over here, I want you to rate, just thinking of your school and your stuff again now, but you've shared a little bit of discussion to start with. How important is that in achieving the vision? If you think the leadership of the principal, it's not a ranking system, you have to rank them 1 to 10. They could all be 10 if you think they're all absolutely vital, but some will be more important than the other. Leadership from the principal, you say that's a 10, if we haven't got it, we're dead in the water. At the moment, he's rubbish, she's rubbish, and it's a 2, or it might be the other way around. But what I want you to do is just on your bit of paper that you've got, very quickly, go down and give it a number from 1 to 10 in terms of how important it is to you, because this will inform the discussion, we'll go back to those kind of bits in a minute. How important it is to you and how well you currently do it in your school. Okay, some of you have finished that exercise, so if you just listen, we go back to it and see if you've finished. Something I want you to do, and those of you that have done maths or maths test, this probably might be the only one I have no problem with this, If your key factor A, go back to principal's leadership, so your key factor A was principal's leadership, and in terms of how important it is to the success, you rated that a 9, and yet you thought that you haven't got that leadership from your principal at the moment, and so you've rated it a 4. Then in that square that goes 9 on importance, up there, 9 on importance, and 4 on how well you're currently doing, you're going to put A. So you're going to put an A there. So now position, using your scoring system, now position each of your key factors on this grid point. Okay, but just pull that to a halt for a minute so we can keep flowing here. It's about the process that we're looking at. You would have seen, because I've written it on your sheet for you, but when you do an exercise like this, when you plan, and obviously principals are doing this every day, and you're taking the best ideas and sliced bread to your principal, who's already got a whole loaf of best ideas and sliced bread sitting there, and they'd love to do them all, but you've got to prioritise what you do, and you've got to be targeted. And that's a part of this exercise here. These things that ended up down here, anything that ended up in this quadrant is relatively, and I say relatively because it's important or you'd never come up with it, but relatively, it's unimportant to achieving your goal. Because it doesn't make the biggest contribution to achieving your goals, and it doesn't really matter that you're still pretty crap at it, because it's not as relevant as the others. Anything that ends up over here, you are called comforters. Basically, compared to some of the other stuff, again, relatively, they're not as important, but you're doing them really well. So just be comfortable about that. Why would you throw? So if you came to me with an idea and I was a principal and sat there, I'd probably be wanting not to go here, go somewhere else. Ones that fall up there are your big priorities. They're really important, they're high on the importance list, and you're not doing very well at them currently. So that's where you're going to say we get bang for buck there. So if you've got something that sits in that quadrant, it's bang for buck. And that's where you should be pitching your change. Over there, they are really important. They're up there on the importance scale, up the top end, but you're already doing pretty well on them. Do not take your eye off the high ball. You know, I've been doing a lot of work with cricket, with this school stuff, because cricket's battling as a sport, let alone in schools. You know, their offerings aren't suitable at all schools. Kids don't want to give up 2 days of their weekend, sign up for 12 weeks and line up to bowl a ball once every hour of training. You know, our next World Cup winning batsman could be sitting in a Decile 1 school in South Auckland who don't even have a cricket bat in the school. You know, you can't take a Gillette Cup model into those schools and say, who wants to sign up for cricket? You take a bowling machine and park it up at lunchtime, you'll probably find some guy that can stand and hit back over your head at 140 k's every time he's never picked up a bat before. But how will you ever find those guys unless you offer products that the kids are going to want to pick up a bat for? However, the Gillette Cup is a fantastic cricketing concept and event. You would be stupid to take your eye off that, which is really important to a lot of our schools and kids. So while they're battling to find answers to cricket, the cricket picture, they should not take their eye off what really works for them. And those are those things up there that are important. You're doing pretty well. For goodness sake, don't take your eye off and give them any less attention than you do now. Let them slow. Okay? Are there any groups still to bring up their coloured bits of paper? Were we close to? It looks like we've got quite a few there. Got one more? Okay, we'll just talk amongst yourselves for a couple of minutes while I play a bit more football up here. Some of you will have noticed that I've taken some license with your suggestions. And while you've been diligent with lugging up here, I've been playing football with them. And kicking them around and making a few executive decisions for the purpose of this exercise. We've ended up with 7 key factors. Not bad, considering there was 40 people in the room and you might have had, 7 or 8 each, and so we had about 300, and we've got 7 key factors here. I'm just going to give them some quick titles, because in a minute we're going to have a game and see who the fastest and best and most organised and well-led team is. We've got a key factor that is centred around leadership, and that might be, it's leadership in a whole lot of ways. We've got a key factor that's centred around getting the staff on board and involved, engaging staff. We've got a key factor that's around sport and education, getting people to understand maybe some of those things I was talking about earlier. We've got one around the community and relationships. We've got one around communicating. We've got one around resources, and we've got one around pathways, opportunities, participation. So they are the 7 key factors that we've distilled out of that process. Have a discussion that's as long as you like with your group, where you decide which one of those you'd like to work on for the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then come and pick up the cards that are in that row and the bit of thing at the top, and then if those of you who are last, your discussion won't matter because your report's here. So we've got an element of competition here. Do it again. Opportunities, participation, resources, communication.
You make a decision. She's gone.
Okay, who's got the community one? Brenda's here. Right, what I want you to do on that bigger bit of paper I've given you is give your key factor a name. Don't give it a 10-word sentence. Give it a 1-word or 2-word name at most, and then again, come and just pop it up on the board under those things there. So put it under these, the 7 key factor names. Give it a name on that big colour bit of paper. It might be leadership, it might be as simple as that. Pop it on the thing. Here's the blue tack. It's on the corner of this table.
1 word, is it?
I don't think we'll be getting instructions to this.
Cool. Now you've got a big bit of paper in front of you. We're going to run through a process. It'll probably take us about 40 minutes, but you're only going to get the first sort of 10 minutes on that bit of paper, so you're going to be quite focused. For your one, for your whatever it was, and let's say it's opportunities, just because it's one down the end there, and I'll make something up very quickly, which won't sound very good. But you're going to write, and this time I'll be a little bit more specific because I won't fit them on the wall otherwise. Can you please use it in portrait format rather than landscape format this time? So we get them on the wall. But you're going to write across the top of here a short statement that starts with the word to. And so you're going to sum up what it is that you're trying to achieve in your area in one sentence. So for opportunities, it might be to provide a range of opportunities that are appropriate to all of our students. I'm just making that up. That you might think, see, once you get your discussion going, something's completely different. But you're a range of sporting opportunities appropriate to every student in the school. That might be your to statement, it might not be. So for your particular heading, your key factor, what is your to statement? What do you want to achieve? Okay, first thing is to write that. Okay, we've got a couple of groups that have finished, so we're going to move on, and we're going to put some pressure on you. This, as I said, it will be a pressure environment to do this work. You work sport under pressure, and if you take too long, you get run over, as the student up front said. The referee's now saying, draw a line across the page under your to statement. So once you've got your to statement, draw a line across the page. And then under that, put a circle for a bullet point. Now, the next thing you're going to do on your sheet of paper is make a list, a bullet-pointed list of what you will actually do in order to achieve that aim. So if your thing was about opportunities and your thing was to provide opportunities for all, it might be one of the things that you might think is that to set up a house sports system, to set up an informal lunchtime sports system, to set up what are the things you're going to do to make sure that every kid in your school can go, hey, there's something for me, if that was your aim. So you've now said, here's our objective, the to statement is your objective, it's what we want to achieve. How are you going to do that? What are you actually going to do? I don't want to see any numbers in there, I don't want to see we're going to get 15 more staff involved in sport, I don't want to see the numbers, I don't want to see that, I just want you're going to make a list of the things you're going to do. Okay, so a bullet-pointed list that is just strategies that you're going to use to achieve, or actions that you're going to use to achieve that aim. Okay. Okay, now for a bit of organised chaos and where you actually get to have your say right across the board very quickly. What we're going to do is bus stop those. So the sheets are going to go in a clockwise direction like that, and you're going to get about 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes to look at every other sheet. So the sheet's going to come to you and you're going to get a look at what other people have said they think that their key factor's about. And you're going to get a chance to contribute. The way you contribute is, you can cross the word out with a single line, but don't obliterate it, or cross something out with a single line. You can put a big tick by something to say, yeah, that's a key fact, that's really important. You can write your own stuff on there. You can add a whole other bullet point if you want. You can do whatever you want to add and to reinforce what people have said, but you can't obliterate what someone else has said. So you might put a cross by it saying, I don't think that's on the right track, that's fine. But we want to keep all the information so we can still see it later. So what we're getting is adding new stuff, changing stuff, emphasising stuff, whatever you want. So all you've got to do is, I will go change after about 3 minutes. Pass your paper clockwise. Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully you'll had a chance to pick up some new ideas, discuss a few bits and pieces, and think about what good school might look like. Now let's start talking about a strategic plan. What does a strategic plan look like? Well, we started out saying you should have a vision of some sort and why. You should actually have some big picture of what you want us to look like at the end. It should have some pillars or key factors or key areas or things you can put a name to that we're talking about, resources here. Anyone knows what we're talking about. It should have some objectives or some two statements. This is what we want to achieve. And it should have some strategies that go with each of those. Now I'm just throwing a format up there, but if you have a quick look at that, there's thousands of formats around. Quick.
Can we get access to your PowerPoint?
Sure. If you have a quick look at that, and then you go like this. Okay, over here what you've got is your vision. Now you need to wordsmith it, do what you want with it or something. You've got your pillars. You've got your objective statements, and you've got some strategies. So what we've just used is a process that in the end, I mean, someone's got to go away and take that and wordsmith it in terms of the implications and make it into something that makes sense and feed it back to people so it's okay. But in effect, you have captured your staffs or your students or your sports group or whatever idea of what your strategies and your visions and your ideals should be in your school around sport. So not only have you had a chance to discuss them, hopefully you've captured them. What I will give you here, and there's one for each person, so I'll just chuck a bunch out and hand them around and take them away. There's a whole lot of stuff that could promote some more thinking, talk, action on this. And grab a copy yourself. The first one that you'll see, one short. Sorry. Yeah, just keep passing them back to the next table so that they should be around. The first thing on the front there is something that says it's a quality school sports program. Now that thing that says a quality school sports program, if you like, is simply a bunch of these ideas. It's from a brainstorming session that I did with another group sometime about what a quality school sports program should look like. But even better still, here is a tool to help you with that, and at the moment I'm embarrassed to say it's pretty rubbish. But it is the best school sport review around, and those of you that have been around long enough, when I was a principal, this was the bee's knees in about the last couple of years, around 2000, 2000. It's a review tool called Sportsmark, and it came out with the old Sport Fit funding system. And it's still the best school sport review tool around. I can get you a copy of it. You can get one off the Sport New Zealand website. Hard to find, but it's there. And it talks about a whole lot of things you've talked about, and it talks about where you are with it, and it talks about your comments and a whole lot of different stuff. So it's a way of reviewing school sport in a systematic way in your school if you wanted to do that before you embark on a process like this. But then what would a plan look like? So from there on, if you look at the next resources in there, you've got a really high-performing organisation's strategic plan there. And it's kind of a different presentation, but again, if you look at that, it's got a vision on the front, flick it over. It's got an environmental scan, which if you like is a review. It says these are the influencing conditions under which we're writing this plan. It's about changing nature of sport for young people. It's about the increasing cost of sport. It's about those things. This is the environment we're working in when we think about a plan. And then it's got a plan. If you look at that, it's got 3 pillars: participation, coordination, leadership, support, partnerships, promotion. And then under each of those, it has a bunch of objectives. Then following that, sorry? I've got one here. You guys run one. Is there a bunch somewhere? Oh, sorry. We'll talk to.
We can photocopy
We'll photocopy some more before you go.
photocopy
Photocopy some more before you go. Then it's got a whole lot of different school sports plans, some completed, some not, some templates, and really they're just ideas for you to take away as to how you might format a school sports plan for yourself or what that might look like. But my advice around school sport planning is don't make it any more complicated than what we've done right now. Involve the right people. So you need some students. You know, people put out questionnaires to students. I'm not a questionnaire fan. It doesn't capture the richness of the information, and all it does is give you some numbers and some. It does give you good information, but I'm much more of a fan of focus groups, getting kids sitting around talking, getting them talking like this, like we've been talking about things. And doing that with key staff or key parents or key community people. So that in the end you've got this kind of shared view and everyone's had a chance to contribute. The process today, while rushed and fast because we had a time frame, everyone did have a chance to contribute, to see the big picture around things. So it doesn't have to be months and months of protracted navel gazing and surveying people, that sort of stuff. It can be as simple as this. Involve your principals. Whatever you're doing, involve your board of trustees. Whatever you're doing must align with your school direction or you shouldn't be doing it. It's a really important concept. There's no point in saying we want to go here and the school was going there. You've got to find your way in that system. Very important. But think big, try to picture what you would see, what it would look like. Rather than thinking, right, we've got to get some flash words down, we've got to do, try to think what this thing would look like in your school. Like I said, Kaikorai Valley, their involvement in that key factor there, the way they've attacked it has led to a reduction in behavioural issues amongst the group they're using. What would it look like if you get this right? And give everybody a chance to contribute and share your ideas. So I hope you found that a good chance to take some time to reflect on the sports stuff and it's moved you somewhere along the way towards planning how you want to go there. Thank you.
Break for lunch, just like to take a moment. For those of you that don't know me, most of you do, but my name's Mark Patchett. I'm the Secondary School Sport Director here, working directly under Jen Parks. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Gary for coming down here and presenting this workshop, and for yourselves for coming and being a part of it. I know strategic planning can often sound like such a huge thing, and these types of things that Gary's put in place, I think will really be a benefit for yourselves. So we're going to take this information, put it together in some form, and we're going to send it all out. And for those of you that haven't noticed, we've also had a camera up the back, so we've been recording this whole workshop, which we'll also be presenting to yourselves. So just on behalf of all the schools here, Gary, and Sport Waikato, just a small token of our appreciation. Another round of applause for